International Canoe Federation's second Slalom World Cup of the 2014 season. The challenging Tacen whitewater course is the scene for this weekend's action on the Sava River just outside Ljubljana. 203 paddlers from 31 nations will be competing in the 5 categories over the next 2 days. I'm Matthew Leighton. Today we're going to be joined by multiple world champions. First of all, Jana Dugatova from Slovakia, and secondly, a regular on this show, David Ford from Canada. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, quickly describe the conditions this morning. The weather, Howie?
I think the weather looks very good. There is no wind. It's a little bit cloudy, but it doesn't matter on the competition. So we are looking forward for a very nice final race.
22 degrees, as you can see. If we looked at the weather forecast 3 or 4 days ago, it was supposed to be huge, great thunderstorms. To be fair, we had one last night at 8 o'clock, but so far it's going to be clean. As you can see, it's the classic course, 275 meters long with 6 upstream gates. And let's get straight into the action. This is the 10 finalists for the canoe single women's competition. A few surprises, but at the top of the end of the draw is going to be Jessica Fox and Rosalind Lawrence and Mallory Franklin, Kimberly Woods. I suppose no great surprises here. But the first one is a local. We watched her a couple of days ago crying after she capsized about 7 or 8 times in the first heat, but it doesn't matter. It is Nina Blezek. She's 19-year-old, and this is her first World Cup final. Talk us through the first challenge here. What's the major challenge they have to get over?
Well, as always, the top drop in Tacen is a formidable foe, regardless of what the gate set is. So what she's trying to do is get down through over that first rooster tail in gate 1 so she can set herself up for the wave that wants to push her away from gate 2 and keep her boat dry into that first upstream. She actually got pushed a little bit wide, but negotiated it well in the end.
We saw in the heats the really, really difficult course. They say the semi-final and final course was potentially a little bit quicker, but we saw this morning, we saw lots of mistakes and I guess people not respecting the course enough. How's she going? Looks like she's clear so far.
Yeah, this course is definitely a little bit more open when compared to the one we had yesterday in the qualification. So now she was a little bit too low in the upstream, but she's fighting.
Yeah, I think this course today maybe uses the flow of the water here, which can be quite changeable a little bit more consistently, which is a bit easier for the paddlers. I think maybe yesterday's qualification course got everyone a little nervous and maybe didn't paddle today with the same confidence they could have. So I'm hoping in the finals we'll see people attacking a little bit more.
The Seychelles is making a good run of it. Reference time in the semi-finals, the fastest pure time was 1:35, but with 4 penalties it was Ros Lawrence who came down eventually with 1:39. No girls actually got through without any penalties at all. Hoskova had 2 penalty points.
She lost significant time here. She had to get back to the gate.
Two more upstreams to go.
Yeah, exiting that upstream is critical because she's got to make the move here so that she can catch the wave and surf across into the next upstream without losing time. And you see she missed that wave and ends up flipping.
Yeah, I think this last part will be very crucial because girls are getting tired and it's one of the very technical moves to the last upstream.
Well, at least she made the final. There were 15 ladies started out in this. 10 of them were born in the 1990s. So it's a young crowd. Here we go, looking a little bit nervous. Why is she nervous? Well, it's Anaëlle Murhut. She's 24 years old, but this is her first World Cup final. I wonder if she capsizes, you'll see that she has fins on her boat. She's actually at the same club as Emily Fair, and obviously follows her example.
It's good to see new faces in the final, the young ones.
A lot of these younger athletes are certainly excited to be looking ahead to Japan for the Olympic Games, where we'll see this event included for the first time.
Well, we saw briefly her fins. We didn't want to, but we saw her at the bottom of the boat. She started in kayaks at the age of 12, but she's only been in canoes for the last 4 years. And while watching this, she's gone a little bit down on there, so perhaps we have a few seconds in hand. Jana, you are the former world champion in C1. Are you going to take it back up again to go for the games?
Yeah, honestly, after my shoulder surgery in 2011, I had to stop paddling C1. I was paddling only K1 since then. So definitely I will paddle just for fun during some trainings on C1, but I'm not sure if I will continue racing in C1 because I'm not sure if my shoulder can do it.
Well, that's good news for the other competitors, maybe not good news for the sport. Here she comes, only 2 seconds penalties we've seen is dropping down a little bit.
But I won on this course in 2010, and I have to say that this is one of the toughest courses to paddle on C1.
Well, she's slightly down at the moment. But we saw this morning there was real challenges, especially like you said at the end of the course when they were starting to be tired. She has a pedigree. She came last year in the junior. What's come now? No, sorry, the latest thing she's done in the French Championships. Quite recently, she came 6th. It just shows the depth of field in France. That was won by Caroline Loire. She was part of the under-23 team that won the Europeans in Bourg-Saint-Maurice last year.
We're seeing an interesting strategy here. She's choosing to actually eddy out on river left to try and get this surf across rather than trying to go direct across the wave. See if it pays off for her. Having a little trouble with her switching, getting a hold of that top T grip.
Now she looks to be quite exhausted.
Two more gates to go for the first, hopefully, of many World Cup finals. Monika Yankova, vastly more experienced. Let's see what she can put down for the Czech Republic.
Nice run down that top drop, unfortunately taking the penalty on the upstream gate, but her line was more direct.
Well, she's on good form last weekend in London in the first ICF World Cup of the season. She came in 5th place. Also, the week before, she came 4th in the Europeans, so there's some recent form.
Exiting that upstream, she leaned the boat a little too much, so the white water grabs that edge of the boat and pulls her down, causing her to lose quite a bit of time as she's trying to negotiate that next downstream gate.
Is there a favourite course for these girls? Are they in awe of this course, or is it, how does it sit in with the rest of the courses that we see during the season?
I think for some athletes, this is they like to race here in Tacen, this course. For some, it's not the favorite course, definitely. I think if you can use the water and if you can improvise in case the water current moves from side to side, you can make a very good and fast run here.
A lot of the athletes I've been speaking to saying the water is unpredictable.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely true.
Well, here she goes, still in touch.
Picking up some penalties, but a little bit more on top of the flow than some of the athletes we've seen so far. She's moving the boat a little bit better, and negotiating those changeable currents with some little more focus. Best cross we've seen so far, ending in a capsize in the upstream. That's too bad, 'cause she really did catch that wave nicely and used the water to fire the boat across the river.
Provisionally, however, she is going to, barring disaster on the last gate, she's going to easily move into the provisional first place. There she does, 167 seconds in total. We saw 1:35 as a pure time to win the semi-final. Any predictions on what's going to take to win it now? Do you think it's going to be about the same thing?
Oh, this is very hard to say, especially in C1 women class. But we have seen time 1:35 in the semi-finals, so we can expect the same or even faster times in the final.
Well, Katerina Hoskova, she's took only 2 penalties in the semi-final, so clearly masters this course.
Yeah, she's one of the athletes I would expect to go quite a bit faster in the final, now having had 1 run on the course. Even though she is taking some penalties, I think she has the experience to really do well on this type of water.
Well, she spent the winter down in New Zealand, probably taking on some fairly interesting water down there. She's got some good form. She came 6th in the Lee Valley last weekend, and she came 3rd, bronze medal in the Europeans.
Yeah, she keeps the boat running very nicely so far.
You see a lot of these women switching which side they're using the canoe paddle on. You won't see that so much in the men's C1 class, but they really use it to great effect to make sure they have the power on the correct side of the boat when they need it.
Well, she's well up. 14 seconds ahead of the field. Coming under the bridge. It doesn't have a name, this bridge, because it's not a permanent one. They actually take it down after big competitions, because in the spring there can be huge, huge water flows, so they don't want it to flow down the river. So far, she's looking to be putting a very, very good run together.
She just needs to keep it consistent till the end.
Very nicely done switching as she's coming halfway across the wave. That's quite, takes some skill to be able to have your boat edge correct and be able to take your paddle out of the water like that, switching sides. Takes some practice.
Where she comes down to the line. And great, great time. Well, you were correct in the pure time was faster, 1:32.
She improved a lot in her final run.
A former world champion. Not quite the same height dimensions as yourself, so it shows that anyone can. You're officially twice her height, I believe.
Yeah, but you can see in Canoe slalom, it doesn't matter. You can be high, you can be not so high. It doesn't matter if you have the feeling for the water and if you can use the water to be fast in the finish.
Chang 10 from China. Very strong delegation over here. Remember, they won a gold medal in the K1 last weekend, and it's looking good. She actually came 21 years old and came a wonderful 3rd in Lee Valley last weekend.
Nice negotiation of that top drop, keeping the bow as dry as she could, which means the boat's running, keeping its speed.
Well, they won the medal for the first people out on the course. I was here about 7:15 this morning, and the Chinese girls were paying a lot of attention to gate number 19 and 20, so they certainly put in the preparation. And she's slightly up at the first split.
Some of that is being able to stay a little bit cleaner than the competitor we saw before, who had already a couple of touches at this point. Keeping the boat moving nicely and staying off the poles is the name of the game on this course.
So far looking good. We went tuning in last week. Just to remind you, the Chinese team, what they're going to do is they were in London last weekend. They're going to go to Prague. Then they go home for 2 months preparation for the Asian Games, which is a flat water slalom. So perhaps different skill sets there. But they've certainly made a big impression so far on the World Cup.
The Asian Games is a very serious competition, though, even though they are this time using it as a flat water slalom. The Asian Games can rival almost the Olympic Games at times in terms of the scope and size of the competition.
For their team, speaking to their team officials, it's remuneration, prize money, it's a lot more interesting. But here she is, she's negotiated herself incredibly well down the course. She's pretty even on the splits.
Yeah, she did it nicely, tight, in and out, in this upstream. Oh, but now she's fighting.
And you saw she wasn't able to get her bow pointed around upstream to initiate the surf on the wave, and ended up coming low into the upstream as a result, costing her a good 4 or 5 seconds.
Well, she was on touch until then, but now she's a little bit off the pace. We'll move into provisional second place as comes over the line. By the way, the girls don't have to go through the yellow buoys. There's a beam goes right across the river. They're asked to do so for television purposes. Anyway, she moves into, Madame Teng moves into provisional second place. Katerina Hoskova, 29 years old, from the Czech Republic, is initially the leader.
I was a bit surprised that only one Chinese girl qualified for the final.
Well, they had three, was it 3 in the semis?
Yeah, but we have seen more qualified for the final last week in London. They were paddling very good in London.
I bet the heart's going a little bit strongly. First appearance for Laurie Neville, 21 years old, in the French Championships in Pau. Last month she came 10th. It just shows the depth of field. Come on. Not a much wider boat than her compatriot, much more volume. Well, in your background you can certainly hear the water. They've got special microphones placed at strategic positions. By the way, we're just waterside, just near the bottom bridge, numbers 16, 17.
Yeah, she's in trouble. No.
Yeah. She's got a long way to go to get back around to try and renegotiate that gate, which at the moment she has missed. We saw her low in the upstream on the left, which may have put a little pressure on her to feel like she needed to do something special to get back on the race line, and ended up, in fact, putting herself more in trouble.
I guess now it's just about experience and getting the most out of this run.
I think you need to be very precise on this course. To being offline just a little bit makes a big difference, and you can very easily touch or even miss the next gate if you get offline.
So it's a case of having a plan but being hugely adaptable.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be adaptable, because unfortunately, even when you think you are online, the line can change here. And if you're not focused and on your game and kind of comfortable within yourself and aren't able to sort of recognize when that line changes, that's when things start going wrong, and then getting back on course here is really, really difficult.
And just briefly, why do the conditions change so much?
It's part of that artificial environment. This is one of the older courses, and they don't have the opportunity to move the obstacles like they do on some of the newer courses. And what happens, I think, is there isn't that sort of millennia to have a river find its equilibrium. It's manufactured and held in place by concrete, so the river tends to build and build and build, and then it will release and shift. And it's during those times when it shifts that if you're a little bit offline or not paying attention to that shift, that you can end up being pushed. Sometimes it's only a few centimeters to one side, but that can be the difference between a clean gate and a 50-second penalty.
Well, so far, very respectable. Only 8 seconds penalty added on. Not going to win. The course, by the way, was first made artificial in 1988. They finished in 1990, and it was to be prepared for the rerun, or the first runs for the 1991 World Championships. Here she comes. The rocks are big local rocks stuck into the concrete base. Laurie Neville provisionally into 5th place.
Oh, already offline.
But it's much, much better than the first run. I spoke to Kimberly Woods from Great Britain, 18 years old, who's actually competing in here today, as you see. And I said, what were you coming down the first run? And she capsized early on, and she said I was absolutely terrified, but managed to hold her run together.
She really showed some poise there when she got pushed by the wave to the left in the middle of the drop. She was able to switch her paddle and be ready to hit that big stopper wave at the bottom of the drop and pull herself into the upstream, although now she's in trouble missing one of the downstream gates.
And in her semi-finals, I was saying, you look relatively smooth going down the rest of the course. She said, well, my straps had come undone, so I had to keep the boat smooth. So amazing she came down.
She's definitely not new to the circuit.
Well, she had an amazing win last year.
She's young, but she's quite experienced. She was racing at the Junior Worlds last year, and she was one of the top favorites.
Again, competes in, made a bit of a mess of that, competes in K1 and C1. Took an amazing win in Cardiff at the first World Cup last season. But she's still in touch. But there again, Katarina Hoskova, who's the provisional leader, was very, very tidy in the last few gates. It's going to be difficult to catch the time up.
Yeah, for everyone, that last move across the wave is going to be critical to getting in the top 3 positions. And having looped already once at the top trying to get back for that gate means she's going to be a little more tired than maybe she needs to be here.
The realistic target is the bronze medal position at the moment. That's at 1:67. Silver's a bit out of touch, I believe.
So she did it perfectly. It was very fast. She was in touch with the wave.
Well, here she comes over the line, moves into provisional bronze situation. Regrets left out on the course.
She must be disappointed. She did one big mistake, and now she probably will be off the podium.
Marley Franklin won last week in style. From Great Britain.
Great example of that contrast to the Czech paddler. She's a very tall and long paddler, really able to get the paddle out in front of her. Perfectly negotiates that top drop, keeping the bow dry and running into that upstream with a lot of speed.
She's a very technical paddler, so we can expect a nice and fast run.
Last year, I think I saw in tears virtually every day last year because she broke her kayak and she broke her canoe on the bottom. But this year, fingers crossed she's better. They were still in touch, but 3.78 seconds down. All to play for there. The middle section's been crucial.
Staying in touch with those upstreams, making sure she's not wasting any time in the eddies as she does the turn. Choosing to spin to set up this offset sequence. Unfortunately, still ends up touching the second offset gate.
Very much in touch so far.
Well, that's one of those examples where the whitewater shifted on her and she wasn't in the right spot.
But it's crucial around 14 to get enough speed to go around the left side of the rock. She seemed to manage that, but as you say, she was moved aside a little bit.
It's very difficult to see on TV here, but that water she was sitting on there can actually shift almost 45 degrees one direction to the other. So you can actually be paddling upstream as you go across there or downstream, depending on the timing of the flow. She was very much on the wrong side of the timing there.
Time, unfortunately, ticking away. The leading time is 1:36. She's not going to do that.
It was a nice job, though, of crossing the wave. She never really quite got the surf, but still was able to use her boat edges to make sure she got across the river quickly.
Well, I don't think she's going to be happy with this run. provisionally moves into 4th place. We do have 2 Australians to come. We do know that Kateřina Huskova now has a medal. First medal for the Czech Republic of this tournament. Now we've got the birthday girls coming up. Jess Fox was 20 years old on Wednesday. Ros Lawrence was a little bit older on Thursday, and our co-commentator Jana Dukatova was a good age yesterday. Here we go.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Jess Fox had a bit of a nightmare first run. She was, I think, quite happy to end up in the final, but there's a lot she can improve on this run to be a lot faster.
Well, like many of the C1 girls, she's going to be doubling up in the K1 as well, so plenty of opportunity to try out this course. As we all know, she is the reigning world champion, where she won the championship by 13 seconds in Prague. Recently in Penrith, she won the under-23 worlds in canoe and kayak, so certainly has the pedigree.
And already 6 seconds up on the fastest competitor we've seen so far. Really taking the mistakes she made of the first run and making good of it.
I saw Jess Fox this morning at 6:45 outside the hotel. I said, "You've just been for a run?" She said, "No, I'm just trying to wake up."
She runs the boat very nicely so far.
Let's see where she's going to be on the split, but so far, 10 seconds up. This is almost an exhibition run.
And it's a clean run so far, so if she can continue with a clean run, we can see.
Well, she won last year in
leader.
Tacen, but she doubled up in Tacen, winning the C1 and K1. The Australian contingent just running by below us. It's a crucial last move.
Nicely done, got good run on the boat.
Well, it's a huge margin so far. There's 2 gates to go. Unless she falls out, I think she's going to put in a wonderful performance.
Smashes it.
They're just 15 seconds ahead of the field. But it's not all over. She is guaranteed a medal. Kateřina Huskova is guaranteed a medal. Last to go, these Australians just below me have to quickly walk up the course because they've got another compatriot to come down in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, it's great when you see the competitors from the same teams cheering each other down the river.
Well, we'll see in a few minutes the not so great side, because we have 50-strong Anze Berchik clan just in front of us with their horns armed and ready to go. Let's see how they do that in a few minutes' time.
This is one of the great, actually, venues. You're sitting in the start and you have a 5 or 6 second flat water sprint, and then you have this small window of the dam where you run the top fall, and all you can see are the sea of people in the stands, and especially when there's a Slovenian competitor, the noise is quite deafening.
Ros Lawrence, 25 and 2 years old. There she goes. Goes over the rooster, over the cushion.
Held up there by the little eddy that's formed halfway down the drop. That was not the start she was hoping for, obviously.
It will be very hard for her to recover from this.
The amount of energy she's putting forward at the top of the course is going to be really, really difficult at the bottom. But she's a fighter. Does really, really well in the big water competitions. That's not going to phase her.
No, I was going to say, actually, when we watched her at the end of her flat water sprint, she actually switched from one side to the other before she went over the lip. When I go over that drop, I have a firm hold on both ends of my paddle. I don't think I'd want to be flipping it around like that right before you go over the drop.
Well, first split, she's only 18 seconds off the pace, so it's still a huge medal opportunity if she can manage to negotiate the rest of this course and conserve some energy.
Certainly hasn't given up, still trying to run the boat well. Not quite on that same solid race line we saw Jess Fox, though. part of that is probably the pressure of knowing she needs to make something happen.
Well, lost 4 seconds against Jess Fox in the middle section, 22 seconds back, so potentially there could be a medal there. I guess she must be tired.
Definitely. She had to fight in the big drop, and you're losing energy.
Well, holding it together remarkably well after the disappointing start. Last 2 gates to negotiate. Not unfortunately going to be a medal today. So I guess mixed ovations for Jessica Fox. Wants the competitor to do well, but obviously delighted at winning.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations, Jessica Fox. Another wonderful victory by a huge margin. You need to get back in your boat. Give her a bit of a competition.
Yeah, I will definitely try.
Yeah, and I know you have to run off in a minute. So you feeling good for the K1?
Yeah, I think so. I like this course for the semi-final, final much more than the one we had in qualifications. So I hope to have a good jump in the first drop and then to keep the boat running.
I remember reading something you said about in the year 2000. You had a bit of an adrenaline buzz when you first went over the drop.
Yeah, definitely. When it was back in 2000. I was junior, and when we came here, and when I saw the first drop, I was so scared and frightened. I was shaking at the start line because it's very unusual that you are sitting at the start line and you can't see the drop because it's over the horizon. You can't see it. You're just paddling, and in the moment you are on the edge of the drop, you can see the whole drop below you. For kids, it's, I think, the moment when they are really scared.
Well, welcome aboard. Well, that was a major comfort zone you compassed. And the second challenge you just done is today, testing your great English. Confirmation of the results, here we go. Jessica Fox has won for Australia. Katerina Hoskova, a silver medal for the Czech Republic. And Chantang Teng, another bronze medal for China. Wonderful result there for China. And we're moving on quickly. Thank you very much. Your English was perfect. Your insight good, and welcome back anytime. We'll let you go now so you can study the course for a little bit later.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, luckily for me anyway, David Ford is going to stay and help us through the next 2 events. Jana now is going to sprint off and study the course. Joining the action again, and this is a star-studded cast for the canoe singles C1 men. In the current world rankings, we have 6 of the top 10, and Michael Marticle not even in the top 10, so it's a really, really strong competition and a really, really pedigree field. As you can see, it's an all-European final, 3 from Slovakia, 3 from Slovenia, and we have Italy, Germany, Poland, and Great Britain. Matej Beneš, he has a wonderful style, very, very at ease on this big water from Slovakia. Missed out on the top 3, so probably won't be going to the Worlds, but let's see how he negotiates the first big drop.
Perfectly. Oh, nothing worse than having the worry of getting down that top drop well and then touching the upstream.
Well, it's exactly the same course for the men as for the women. Let's see the contrasting different styles, how they keep their energy going.
What you'll notice right away is that the only athlete likely to do any switching from one side to the other will be Stefano Cipressi, who was a world champion actually in the kayak class and then suffered an injury that forced him to switch to C1. The rest of these athletes will stay on their onside and use the offside stroke without changing their hands. Despite that mistake at gate 2 with the touch, he's actually having quite a nice run, keeping the boat moving. Good power on the blade, not wasting time anywhere.
So far, only 2 faults, but most of the men in the semi-final managed to go down the whole course without faults. Can't say the same for the K1, but the C1 men seem to totally master.
Oh, and he's missed the wave. Does well, actually, though, to use the slack water behind the wave to press the boat across, having to use some of that energy that he was able to save by staying online the rest of the course.
Well, it's a competitive first round. 110 seconds, but the action said it all.
You can't help but wonder if that early 2-second penalty kind of lit a fire under him, but he wasn't able to kind of keep his emotions in check. It's easy here to put in a lot of effort, but actually not be going anywhere. If you're not on the flow and using the power in the water here, it can really make you pay with a lot of time ticking away.
Next to go, Mikael Martikön. In 1998, when they had the World Cup here, he ended up taking the gold medal, so that was 16 years ago. And had been taking gold medals 3 years before that, so a bit of a phenomenon. Didn't look like, watching the semi-finals, when he was halfway down the run, it looked like he was going to be out, but really put forward a good last few gates and really took a bit of a challenges in this second one.
Yeah, another instance where he had a good run down the drop, but then ended up not controlling his bow well enough and taking a touch on the upstream. This is an athlete, though, who often paddles very much within himself, and when something goes wrong, he's got a couple of extra gears that he can dive into to try and really pull down the course quickly.
11-12 this morning. We started speaking to a couple of athletes who've been down there saying the water levels are changing a lot, so it's very difficult to keep the line. And here coming into 14, need to keep the speed so you can go around the left side of the rock.
He took a lot of risk on that offset and it paid off.
Well, 1.83 seconds so far up. Needs to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, this last cross is going to be critical if he has any hopes of having a podium with that penalty on the board. As you said, very few athletes took penalties in the C1 semi-final. Excellent cross. Wasted very little time, kept the boat running very quickly.
Reference point is 1:10. It's going to be very close. Well, at the end of the day, not all that close. 4 seconds up. Last week he took the bronze medal and he said it was a terrible run. So let's see how he comes with his own high standards.
Yeah, without that penalty, it would have been the fastest time of the day so far of the C1 men. The one good thing, even with that penalty, is he's put a time on the board that was very competitive from this morning, and that puts pressure on everyone else that has to follow him.
Just for a quick warning now, we have Anze Bergic fan club just in front of us, and Anze Bergic, who in the heats he was 3 seconds ahead of everyone else, and he scared them a little bit. They actually went quiet at the end of the semi-finals, but he has qualified and expects some noise from the local man.
I would say there are very few venues that are as loud as Tacen when a Slovenia is on the course.
And why not? He must be able to hear them when he's coming down. We can't see anything out of the window now. Everyone's standing up in front of us. We have to stand up ourselves.
A little bit low and picks up a penalty on the downstream before the upstream. was one of those penalties, though he may not know he's taken it, which means he may not have the opportunity to put that extra gear in force to try and get down the course a little bit quicker, knowing he's made a mistake.
Well, as we saw at the first slip, he was in touch, but 1 second down.
Nicely executed in that offset sequence, not letting his boat slow down too much or waste too much time shifting from side to side.
Let's see where he is at the split. He's going to have to really push it. It's 1.7 down at the split. Coming under us now, coming under the bridge. If applause can help, he's going to win it by a mile.
Michael Mardikan executed this last section very well, so to already be 1.7 down is going to be difficult.
There we come. This is the crucial.
He caught the wave, but he didn't run the boat across the way Mardikan did. He had a little hiccup halfway across. I think any chance he had of catching him ended there.
Well, 106.06 is not going to happen. Moves into provisional second place. Polite applause from his family and friends. So far, as we mentioned, it's coming down the semi-final run, which is identical to this one. It was fairly fast and no penalties. Will it be the extra stress of just trying to push it? Or?
I think part of it is knowing he did a 108 in the semi-final and 105 won it, and he needs to find those 3 seconds somewhere if he has a chance of being on the podium. And you can't discount, too, being a home crowd, that home pressure of delivering a medal for these people. It can be tough sometimes.
Here we go, familiar style of David Florence, double world champion, won last weekend in London. It's the first time I can remember that his parents aren't running down the course with him, so let's see how he goes alone.
Probably one of the fittest athletes on the circuit.
Last year he was, I think, one of the only Brits who actually decided to go in, or was able to go in all World Cups. Struggled a bit there, but obviously came to form in the last World Championships.
That's where it counts. Double world champion. Not many people can say that. Got held up a little bit on the entry into that upstream, didn't penetrate enough to keep the boat running, and in trying to get his speed back, he ends up taking the penalty with his top hand. You never want to take a penalty, but when you take a penalty and you're also losing time, that's just adding insult to injury, unfortunately.
Well, he's one of the fastest on the circuit, but he's going to have to be because he's 7 seconds down. It's a big ask.
I'm not sure there's enough course left to make up 7 seconds, unfortunately, even if he's perfect from here down.
Well, he's made up 2 seconds, 5 seconds to make up.
Ran the boat nicely there. He didn't let the hydraulic whitewater stop his boat much. Much better than some of the other athletes we've seen come through there.
Well, he shouldn't be tired because he actually went in the first round of the heats, decided not to go in the second round. Let's see how he goes across here.
No, not able to catch the wave, fighting for it, but not able to catch it, which means it's his own power that gets him across, and it's not going to be as fast as using the surf from the wave.
Well, you can't win them all. He wins most of them. .66 seconds off, and he's going to be in the commentary booth tomorrow, so we'll actually find out what his own thoughts were then.
That was just one of those runs that at this point in this upstream got a little bit sideways and wasn't able to get the boat running again in a way that kind of made any difference to his running time. It was just looked like a lot of effort, but not effort that was creating speed.
Well, we're perhaps not going to have quite the same volumes as noise as we had for Anzi Birchek, but we're going to be pretty loud for this next competitor. Benzi Shosek is known as one of the fastest and possibly not the most consistent competitor, but really can put a run together when he's in form.
Yeah, Benny can really move the boat. Another one who has a good run down the drop and then touches gate 2. To make matters worse, he actually ended up dropping his stern too far and touched the bottom of the course, stopping the rotation of his boat, which means his exit was not as fast as it could have been.
But he's, he's flying, isn't he? Absolutely keeping the boat pointing in the right direction. And 1 second up the split.
Could this be one of those local knowledge runs that just uses the whitewater to magical effect? Doesn't look like the prettiest run, but to be 1 second up, doing something right up there.
Well, that's what we saw last year, in the last couple of years in the World Cup Series. He's leading in the heats, didn't quite manage to put it together. Well, it's going to be really close. He's the same as Mardikan, well, 0.1 of a second down. But as you mentioned, Mardikan really managed to put forward a good last 3 or 4 gates.
Really fast on that offset under the bridge, barely changed his line at all. This is where it's all going to be critical, though. He should know how to catch this wave in his sleep, having done it who knows how many times, and he does. This finishing sprint's going to be very interesting.
1:06.06 to go for. It's going to be really close.
Really
he comes down the
close.
line. Well, again, not that close.
Wow.
Delighted Malcolm Mardikan in the little picture. Let's see his facial features. Is he happy?
I would say you'd have to be anytime Mardikan's sitting on the top step and you bump him off, especially at home. But I think he had to dive into that tickle trunk to find a little local knowledge there. Not the prettiest run, but found those little currents we talked about that shift to make sure that he was always pulling in a direction that got him to the finish line faster than Mardikan.
Instinct from the locals below the Ante Berčić fan club, because they were cheering, but he's dropped Berčić into third place, so it's a bit of a mixed emotion there. Stefano Cipresi, as you mentioned before, he's been a world champion in the K1s, now moved across the C1s and switching all the time.
Yeah, I'm amazed that in the men's event you'll see someone switching, but he does it very well. It's that experience he has as a kayak to be able to paddle well on both sides. Always making sure he's got that power stroke exactly where he needs it. You'll watch the other canoes having to reach across to use what we call a crossbow stroke. Not always the same strength. 2 seconds in advantage, but remember, he's clean at this point where those other athletes had a penalty.
Last week he missed out just on the final, coming 12th in Lee Valley. 31 years old, massive experience. Let's see how he puts it together.
Switching in the middle of a very technical offset sequence and keeping the boat running very nicely. It'll be interesting to see this next split. I haven't seen him throw away any time here.
Wait, still a second up. The crowd below silent watching.
Choosing to spin and maybe picking up a penalty. I see the judges making some form of indication.
But it's a 2-second penalty. Soshek actually spun on his semi-final as well.
Yeah, but those athletes that were able to go direct and keep that bow pointing downstream are really going to make a lot of time there.
Well, after an amazing start, it's going to be really close. Time to go for his 1:04. He's not going to do that, but can he take a medal? Well, provisionally moves into third place, but thinks he could have done better.
I think he knows that penalty is going to hurt when the final results are posted. I think he also knows he wasn't maybe quite as crisp at the last part of the course as he could have been. The midway section, he had really put quite a tidy run together.
No one clear. All 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paddlers so far have had a 2-second penalty.
Opens the door for our last 4 competitors for sure.
Next compared to 31-year-old Alexander Slavkovsky. Not an Olympian, but makes stacks and stacks of finals.
It's pretty tough when you have to make a team with the guy making the team winning the Olympics more often than not. One of those athletes who probably would have his own drawer full of Olympic medals had he not had to go against Mardikan to make the team.
See where the first split, and he's in more than in touch. He's nearly a second up so far. Very tall with a long reach.
Long reach and a very efficient paddler. When he's on a good run, his strokes count for a lot. Doesn't waste much.
Well, we saw in Augsburg last season, 2013, in the World Cup, he won by a country mile. Here he goes, has a 2-second penalty.
I'm not sure I saw that. I saw him splash one of the gates, which made it move, so hopefully the video judge is able to assess that, whether in fact he did touch it or not.
Well, accordingly to that, there is a chance to come off. We saw Fabian Dorfler, who was had a penalty, come off in the K1, so we're going to see him soon in the final. So there is potential there. He's under the bridge.
His last move, as we've said already, is critical. Oh, such poise, beautiful. Waits till the exact right moment to put in the power and ends up surfing across very quickly, using very little of his own energy.
Unfortunately, left a little bit too much earlier on. Benji Sosek is in a good position. That puts him way down, only 4.5 seconds off, but way down in the rankings. 3 to go. Sosek looking good for a medal. No one's really mastered all aspects of the course so far, have they?
No, and that's the complexity of the changeability of the whitewater, showing there where he may have taken his touch in the slow motion just off the front of his buoyancy aid.
Even, by the way, if there is an appeal, which I can't see on the screen, and it comes off, it would still put him way down the field.
Not fast enough.
Sidiris Tasiades, very short paddle, knows how to use it though. They're taking about 19 strokes to get over the edge. You think he dropped slightly low?
I think he was more wide than low, which means he wasn't using any speed anywhere. He was just kind of floundering for a second. I'll be curious to see what his midway split as he takes a penalty, which won't help it.
Well, not sure if that penalty is included, but it's a little bit off the pace in early doors.
When he's on, you can tell there's a confidence to his paddling and his strokes. He's sort of right on and under the poles in the upstreams, and he's just giving everything a little bit more width than I think will be fast enough, dropping his paddle there. Something's got him, I think, a little bit unsettled in this run and just not the level of confidence necessary to reach the podium.
World Cup last weekend came 8th. As we all know, he does have the Olympic silver medal from 2012. Estangue clearly took the gold medal. It's not going right for him today. Completely penalty after penalty, unfortunately.
This is one of those runs on Tacen where it just starts ugly and ends ugly.
Benjamin Sosek has a medal for Slovenia.
Does well there, though, to catch the wave. Surfing in right under the pole. Taking another penalty there on the sprint to the finish.
Sosek in your picture in the small square, looking very, very delighted, but certainly hasn't won it yet. We have another Slovenian to go. Two more competitors to go from Tacen. Weather's holding off as well, which is great news.
Our next competitor was a bit of a surprise for me to be in the top 3.
Ranked officially number 36 in the world. That's from Poland, Gregor Hedvig, 25 years old. Last week in Lee Valley came 16th. So I suppose he's the, like you say, he's the one of the few who's not yet a world champion.
Interesting to see if he can recreate the sort of confidence he had on that first run, because it was sort of every stroke counted exactly how he needed it, and right off the bat he's finding himself crabbing the boat where it's sideways rather than running with the stern following the bow.
Well, last year Tacen was kind to him. He came 6th in the other 2 events he went into with Cardiff and Augsburg. He came in 23rd and 27th, so he's good to be in a final, but it's fallen apart already.
think the situation has gotten the better of him, being one of the last couple to start, knowing that he has the skill to get on the podium. Sometimes here, waiting a split second for the right stroke is better than any stroke. And it just seems like he's rushing things, and it's not paying off for him.
But as we said, amazing in 36 in the world to actually make the final. Barring something extraordinary, which won't happen, it means that Michael Martican also has a medal. Slavček guaranteed at least the silver. But to be saying that, he's putting forward a good end of the run.
It's actually rare on Tacen to be so unsettled to start and finish well. So credit to this athlete to be able to put it back together. Does well to catch the wave, surfs it across. How quickly can he get out and get on his finish sprint?
Silver medal be 1:06.06.
Not going to get there.
Well, Slavček in your picture is guaranteed a medal. It's always a bit dangerous for the spectators when there's a Polish paddler going down, because we have the Polacek family running down. 4 brothers, 2 sisters.
Great paddling family.
Mattis, by the way, is going to be commentating tomorrow, so we'll hear about the family and how they managed to put such an amazing team together. Well, the reason that the crowd and the announcers at stateside are quite enthusiastic is we do have a Slovenian gold medalist. We don't know who yet, but we have a gold medalist, because the last to go is Luka Bozic, who won the C2 last weekend. 23 years old. C1 last weekend was 24, so he has something to go for. This shows local knowledge is quite a lot here.
It is, but he's really been coming on. He ventured out of the C2 last year. Not sure why, if his partner was injured or what, but he started racing more C1 and really started to show that he has the skill to go it alone. Early penalty, though. Will he be able to use local knowledge to make up that 2 seconds? At least get on the podium.
Good, the Bozic family is in fine voice again now they've realised that Anze's out the medals.
Doing well, keeping the boat moving. Next split will be interesting.
As we see, 4 seconds of penalties. He's going to really do something special, have to do something special to come through. Yes, he's in touch, that's extraordinary. 1.5 seconds down with 4 seconds of penalties.
Shows his time is fast. It's just that inability to stay off the poles is killing him right now.
Well, as you mentioned, the crucial stage, see how he surfs across the wave when he comes down over here.
Oh, you saw him get pushed just a little funny before the drop, and he wasn't able to get his boat back online as he came down. Did well to catch the wave, but actually overdid it, almost piling his bow into the wave.
Well, that was very, very costly. If it wasn't for the 4 seconds, but you can always say if it wasn't.
Even just that last surf probably would have put him on the podium had he been able to nail that.
Well, let's hope tomorrow we'll obviously have the semi-finals of the C2s. Let's hope the local crowd and ourselves have the joy of watching them again tomorrow. If you just tuned in, Jess Fox won the first event by 15 seconds. She won the C1 with a great run there. Katerina Hoskova second, and Zheng Tang for the second week in a row took bronze medal for China. The event you've just seen now is the C1 men's. And here we go, the official results. Benjamin Slavček for Slovenia takes the gold. Michael Martican for Slovakia takes the silver. And Stefano Cipressi for Italy takes the bronze, with Luka Bozic for the locals and Ante Bozic taking 4th and 5th. David, you say something about the penalties there?
Yeah, very interesting to see a final where no clean runs were put on the board. Shows you the complexity of the whitewater here and how difficult the course set has been. The qualification course was very difficult. This one a little bit more with the flow, but still, it's a tough weekend for the athletes.
Well, we're going from one event in the semi-finals where there was no penalties, well, very few penalties, and we're going to move on into the kayak men's singles where there were stacks and stacks of penalties, weren't there? The Momelty was out with the 50. We had Joe Clark for England, Great Britain out full of 50. Priskovich out full of 50. Mike Kerr for Switzerland out for 50. And they went on and on and on. They were all missing gate 2 and gate 5, weren't they?
Yeah, it's that fine line between making sure you have a fast line but still negotiating the upstreams where you actually put your whole head inside the gate. As a reminder, a part of your boat and your entire head have to be inside under the pole for it to be negotiated correctly.
And just while we're waiting for the next event to start, a word about your weekend's performance?
I am still battling a back injury, which wasn't what I came on the World Cup for to deal with, but it's part of the sport. We have Peter Kauser, unfortunately, out with a shoulder dislocation, so it's one of those things where managing the body is as important as managing your runs.
This is the, as you can see, it's going to be the K1 final with, often we do in the commentary box, we try and guess who's going to make it, and I only guessed about half of these guys. It's going to be really, really interesting to see lots of new talent. As you can see, looking down, we have a New Zealander, an Australia, Canada. Great to have, we'll know all about Ben Hayward in a minute. If you recognize the voice but couldn't put a picture to the name, it's David Ford, 1999, aging you, 1999 world champion in this event. So you certainly know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's great to see a Canadian in the final. We had Michael Taylor last weekend finishing 10th in the qualification event, so it shows the quality of our program at home. So obviously being a Canadian, I'm quite excited about that.
As a team, are you going on to Prague next week?
Yeah, we're going to race in Prague and then go home for some training in the US where the World Championships will be held in September.
Italy have a finalist, Andrea Romeo. He does have a gold medal to his name in the K1 teams event in Prague, the Italy won. Let's see how they attack it. So many of these semi-finalists took a 50 on the second gate. So at least he's come through that.
He's actually run that section really nicely, keeping the boat dry and moving. Doesn't look flashy, but the boat's moving.
Big Italian contingent here, so we'll expect some noise in a few minutes. Not too far away from Italy physically. We're just outside the Slovenian capital of Ljubljana. Looking like he's putting together a good run at the stage.
Yeah, he is, and he's doing it without wasting a lot of energy, which will pay off at the finish with that very hard move we've seen the C1 struggle with at times.
Point of reference, the fastest semi-final time was Matthew Davy from Belgium. He came down in 97 seconds clean.
So we don't have anything to compare his midway split to, but I believe that's a good 5 seconds faster than the Canoes, which I think is an indication of a solid run.
Well, so far clean.
This is that critical move. Can he catch this wave? He doesn't quite get on it, but I'm not sure he needed to. The boat was running anyway.
He's putting together a cracking run, isn't he? Here we go. That is impressive.
Fastest run of the day, and he puts the pressure on the other 9 athletes because they'll hear the speaker. They'll know what he's just done.
Rightly proud of a wonderful first run.
Kind of a surprise, I have to say, but he's the kind of athlete in training who is often quick. Just hasn't had the opportunity yet to do it in a race, and I think we just saw a bit of a special run from him. Daniel
Mulmelty, his compatriot, didn't didn't actually make the final, as I mentioned a minute ago. He took a 50-second penalty. He's now sprinting back home to his wife because she let him off for today, but nowhere tomorrow because it's his wedding anniversary, so he was given a bit of a pass. Fabian Doeffler won the sprint on Wednesday evening in Ljubljana city, so we know he can certainly go fast. 2005 world champion. When I spoke to him about 10 minutes after the event, he wasn't qualified. He said, well, I didn't touch any of the boats, but they've given me penalties and they appealed. And he was correct. He said, I might have had some water, but I know I didn't touch a pole. So he's in it. He's a 2005 world champion, top rally driver, and is capable of putting forward a really, really top time.
Yeah, especially here. I hate to give the announcer's curse, but Fabian Doeffler can be very, very fast here. Only 2/100ths adrift of the Italian, so lots of course left for him to... Oh, but catching his bow early there. You need to keep the boat running if you're going to be fast.
I suppose part of the benefit of being in the German team is the most difficult race of the season is the German trials.
Yeah, I've raced German trials a couple of times, and it is probably the toughest race I ever do in terms of quality of performance and how many good boats there are.
And Paul Berkler, who's number 5 or 6 in the world, didn't even make the team this year.
You have many instances where you have Olympic medalists and world championship medalists not making the team.
Well, he's certainly in touch. At the last bit, he was a third of a second up. Let's see how he goes. Big German contingent following him down, whistling away.
Very good in big whitewater competitions and using that whitewater perfectly, keeping the boat running nicely, very tight to the upstream.
97, it's going to be close.
It's going to have to go.
Great, well done, Fabian. Fastest time of the day so far.
2 very good runs to start the competition. Our fastest run this morning was 97.69. Both of those runs inside of that time already. There were a couple of places where I felt like he probably could have taken advantage a little bit better, so maybe the door is still open. As I look at the rest of the athletes, though, Sebastian Schubert, one of the few, other than perhaps the Slovenian home knowledge, that has the capacity to lay down runs that can rival that.
Next up, Mike Dawson. Bumped into him on Thursday and he said, do you want me to do some commentating? I said, not on Saturday because you'll be in the final. So he's coming in tomorrow, and he's got a lot of local knowledge. He spent a lot of time a couple of summers ago in Slovenia, likes it here.
He does like it here, worked a lot with Dejan Krauj, a Slovenian team member for many years. I was actually sitting with him after his run, and he hadn't even had anything to eat or done much of a cool down. He was convinced his run wasn't good enough to make the final, and as things progressed, I convinced him he should probably go do something about being ready for the final.
So if he wins, it's down to you, but that's not good.
No. That's that moment where he leaned his boat a little bit too far, so he let that whitewater catch it and pull it down and hold it. You need to be very flat there so the boat can skim over the whitewater and run to the next downstream gate. Also picking up a penalty. Already behind Doeffler's midway split. I don't think this was the run he was looking for, but certainly an achievement to get in the final here.
7 seconds off the pace in the moment. As you all know, he's an Olympian as well, was 15th in the London Olympic Games. Capable of running some massive water as well.
Yeah, like Doeffler, he does a lot of the extreme races on very, very big whitewater. This sort of stuff shouldn't faze him at all. See him catching a little, maybe too much surf actually. Not having the boat run directly across as we saw Doeffler.
So the big challenge he had at the beginning of a course, putting him way down, unfortunately. Well, you see he's in 3rd place, but only 3 participants first of all. But there were 63 competitors set out at the beginning of the week, and he's got into the top 10, and knows he's on camera. Thank you, Mike.
Great achievement by him, but I think this is one of those runs to show some contrast to our first 2 runs in Tacen, when you get just that half a meter offline early, it's very difficult to kind of get back in the flow and get back on your race line. And I think he had to put a little more struggle in for not much gain than he would have liked.
Will Forsyth again. We had the same conversation on Thursday. I said, I don't want you on Saturday commentating. He commentated this last week because he's going to be in the final, and he was. He is, rather. Last season he had an injury, and then he made it to the World Championships.
Nice run down the drop, nice and dry. Kind of that perfect balance between being tight but not taking the penalty.
Well, that's the best start so far. Interesting to see where we are on the split.
Didn't get held up like Mike Dawson did.
He's in touch, half a second down.
As I said, Dorfler maybe left the door open to something special if he can find it. Needs to really run this section well, which he does. Oh, he needed to have his boat rotated another 30 centimeters to be able to make that move properly. Ends up going on the wrong side of the rock and is now in that water I was talking about earlier during the C1 class that can actually shift. So at points you're actually paddling against the flow even though you're pointing downstream.
And was that another touch?
That was another touch. Knowing that he needed to do something to make up for that, he really went tight to that upstream and just caught it with his shoulder on the way in. To his credit, though, he knows he needs to do something special, and he's going for it. Just not going to be enough, unfortunately.
Not today. Let's see where he comes up. Fabian Doetler in your picture is leading. Great to be in the final, though. Will Forsyth, 104.7.
Actually, with a 100 running time, it shows how good the rest of the run was with that mistake where he ended up on the wrong side of the rock. That cost him a lot of time.
Well, so far, first two in 0.2 of a second. I'm just looking back at the semi-final results. We had a 97, 299s. Then we had 7 100s and 7 or 8 101. So it's really, really, really tight racing out there.
It is, and as you mentioned earlier, a lot of the bigger names falling to 50-second penalties.
Who's this guy?
This is Ben Hayward from Canada. Ben is an on or off kind of guy. He really, really goes hard and has probably the most comfort with risk of any paddler out there.
Is that a compliment?
It's one of those things where when he manages his wrists properly, it's very, very fast. When he doesn't, unfortunately, it can get into trouble quickly. He's shown on several occasions he has the potential to be in the final, pardon me. So it's great to see him finally coming through here in Tacen.
Still in touch, 0.8 down. You've been speaking to him this morning?
I haven't actually talked to him today. It's one of those things where he's kind of being a teammate. I try and manage the environment so I'm not a distraction at all.
He's certainly not wasting any time around the ups.
That's that risk I told you he's willing to do, really barely getting his head in. Oh, and that's just an unlucky surge. That water where normally it's running downstream was almost running upstream, and in trying to fight that, he's kind of gotten off his line, and we're seeing it resulting in penalties and slow course management. But it really wasn't Ben's fault. It was just the shift of the water.
He's been given a 50 there.
With this being his first final, though, from a Canadian perspective, I think it's just the indication of what that means for both myself and Michael Taylor and the other people in our program. It's just great to see somebody in the final again.
Lifts the morale of the whole team.
Certainly disappointed knowing an opportunity went, but hopefully in the next few hours he'll realize the achievement of just the fact that it is his first final.
Well, we have another Slovenian coming down, Martin Albrecht. There were huge cheers in the semi-final when he came down. I think expecting to make some noise. Great pictures.
Great slow motion shots of what the athletes go through. These things happen so quickly for us out there. Curious to see what this run looks like. I thought he looked a little bit measured on his first run. Wondering if there's maybe something else left that he's able to draw upon here.
Well, local knowledge may come into play.
Struggling there, he ended up wide in that downstream, not able to get his approach to the upstream quite properly, so he ended up sitting there on the eddy line longer than he should, showing in the split almost just over 3 seconds back already. Even with local knowledge, 3 seconds is a tough one to overcome.
So he's going to have to really put the foot down to the maximum and take huge risks.
The problem is, as I mentioned before, in Tacen, sometimes those sorts of things happen and you don't even notice how far and how much time you've lost. And so you continue on your way and get to the finish line and are a little bit shocked to realize you're 4 seconds back when it all didn't really feel that bad.
Well, he hasn't lost any time in the midsection, but nearly 4 seconds down at this point.
Even with the great bottom section, I'm not sure there's much he can do to improve at this point.
Third position rather at the moment for bronze medal is 104.7.
And here he misses that wave. You see him crabbing to the finish or to the eddy line. He's not running the boat.
Maximum effort for the last line and touches the last wave.
That shows me maybe he let the situation get to him a little bit.
With the quality to come so far. Ben Hayward is appealing his 50-second penalty.
I didn't see which gate he was given the 50-second penalty on, so I can't say what his likelihood of being successful with that is.
So 4 competitors to go. Fabian Dofer at the moment in the driving streak with the fastest time of the day, 97.12 seconds and clear. Andrea Romeo from Italy, 0.2 seconds worse off and clear. Ondrej Tunka for the Czech Republic, first of 2 Czech Republic competitors to go, 23 years old, last week in Lee Valley, only came 19th. Tacen last year, I believe he came 6th.
Trains a lot with a very successful training group, which means that on a daily basis he knows what it takes to be a medalist. It's just whether or not he's able to draw on it on race day. In too high already. That's that fine line between wanting to be really direct and extreme and shortening your line, but not overcooking it. Ending up too high in that upstream means he's got to wait for it, killing any chance of having a fast split.
As you can see, 6 seconds off the pace at the moment. Is there a conscious decision at this point to say, wow, just let's go for it, or let's just keep it clean?
I think he had the conscious decision to go for it before he started this run, and I think that the way he got into this final was by using the whitewater, using his skill, and kind of not fighting so much with the whitewater. And what he's done by trying to go fast here is just started to struggle and fight rather than be smart with his placement of power. And Tacen really makes you pay for it when you're not pretty on the water. Dorfler, an example of where he actually was able to fight and still be fast.
Let's see who we are so far. No, he's not going to medal today, unfortunately. Ondrej Tunka, and provisionally into 5th place.
I think this, what we just saw too, is an example of those athletes really early on laying down very competitive times. Everyone in the start, as they're warming up, can hear that loudspeaker. They know what's going on. As much as you try and ignore it and be within your own race head, it gets in there, and you know that, okay, I was 3 seconds slower in my semifinal than what these guys are doing. If I want to be on the podium, somewhere I have to find 3 seconds. And I think what we saw was him trying to find those 3 seconds, but the river saying no.
Well said. Next competitor, if you can have a parental advantage, his father was sprinting down the course a few minutes before he went, just to take last video footage of the upstreams. It's Luba Hilgert, obviously mother Stepanga Hilgertova's been at 6 Olympics and won more medals than we got time to talk about. Be interesting to see how they go. Parents are surely going to be running down in front of us in a minute.
I watched them in his semi-final, running down with him. He's got something to prove here, not making the team proper this year. This might be one of his few opportunities to have a World Cup start. Not doing too badly so far. Oh, but picking up a 2-second penalty, that's not going to help his cause.
Apart from the penalty, still in touch though. As you can see in your picture, Will Forsyth at the moment is holding on to the bronze medal with a gross time of 1:04.7.
Not really doing what he needs to do here. It's all just a little bit timid almost, where he's afraid to make the choices he knows he has to make.
Coming under the bridge, father running down with him, pushing his son on.
Doing well with that last upstream. This last move will be interesting. Doesn't really get the surf, but is able to move the boat anyway. Kind of the surf on the back of the surf.
Time to go for 1:04.70. It's going to be very close for the medal.
Yep.
Well, he puts himself in a chance. Fabian Dofler does have a medal. 2 competitors to go.
The next competitor for me, Sebastian Schubert, was who I've been waiting for since Dofler laid down his run, to see if maybe someone can challenge him.
Not the ideal start to the season, was only 8th in Vienna.
Both Schubert and Einer choosing to change radical boat designs this year. Always tough when you're having a successful run of races.
As we all know, he won the World Cup standings last year, so I guess he's the man to beat. It's great watching his mental preparation when he's going down the course before. He's actually living all the moves, isn't he?
Yeah, mental imagery for us is key, with no opportunity to have a practice run. He's tight, but I'm not sure that it's fast. Three-quarters of a second back already. You saw him catch his stern in the first upstream on the bottom of the river, which slowed down the rotation, meaning he left with no speed. I'm wondering if that's where that 3/4 of a second came from. Nicely through that offset sequence. Holds the pole in the upstream. He's given himself every effort here.
Well, he's in touch, isn't he? A second down.
Oh, didn't get the help from the wave there he wanted, which meant he was very late for that downstream, opting to go for the quick spin, staying clean. Remember, there's 3 medals out there for grabs. I'm sure he'd like to win, but this run is still in touch with that podium.
Very much in touch. First place 97.12, second 97.32.
A little timid in that offset. This is where he needs to be hammering.
Polite applause from his colleague, Fabian Dofler. So far, Andrea Romeo from Italy has guaranteed himself a medal. It's a case of what color. Last to go, you wouldn't have possibly predicted beforehand. It's 31-year-old Matthew Doby from Belgium, part of the self-help group in Po, who train down in France all the time together.
I wouldn't say that he's necessarily a surprise, because everyone knows that Matthew Doby has the capacity to do a fast run. He just isn't known for doing it at this stage of the competition. So the question now is, was that his best, or has he got the ability to recreate it?
Last year in his World Cups, he was 34th in Cardiff, 19th in Augsburg, Lecce 12th, didn't compete in Tacen, and Bratislava 42nd. So it's great to see him in the final. And last weekend in Lee Valley came 16th.
Interesting to see his split time, because he's doing nothing wrong so far, but is it a little too bland to be fast?
1.23, so still in with a chance.
What I like about this run is he's not knowing the times out on the scoreboard. He's not out there trying to do something beyond what he knows he's capable of. He's staying very much within his own style, his own level, if you will, and giving himself a really good chance potentially of ending up on the podium, even though the first place might be out of reach for him.
This weekend he is the Belgium team. Only one paddler from Belgium made the trip. But saw 1.8 seconds down, so it's still a medal opportunity there.
Yeah, he's really doing nothing wrong out there. He's keeping the boat moving, nice and tight with the upstreams. This is critical. Gets on the wave. Now it's this exit and how well he's able to pull to the finish. He's got a small offset sequence to deal with, but really he needs to be pulling here.
It's not gold, it's not silver. Oh, it just moves into 4th place.
2 Germans on the podium.
And an Italian, who looks probably the happiest of the lot. Can't quite read the message.
Was a nice run from Doby, though. I think he can be quite proud of that.
Part of the Kaya Pinpi group. There's Bersinger, Petterlin, and a few of them giving it all down in Po.
And really, that's what fosters great performance, is that strong training group where you're willing to sort of sacrifice for each other, bleed with each other on those cold winter days, and then on race day kind of forget about your friendship and go for it.
We're an Australian, a Slovenian, and a German on the top medal podium so far today. Lots of families here. Quite a few of the paddlers have their young kids with them, and a lot of the locals brought them with us. A great bouncy castle. Everyone having plenty of beer. And it's torture for us here because we can actually smell the burgers coming in. There's Jessica Fox talking to Jana Dukateva. Who's the little girl going to ask for the autographs first?
I have to say, though, we did miss Peter Kauser in this final. I wish him well and hope his recovery is as speedy as possible.
Germany, Italy, Germany, Dofle, Romeo, Schubert. Peter Kauser is actually about 3 meters away from us. He's been doing some of the Slovenian national TV. And I believe he's operated, is it next week, and looking, big smile on his face, but obviously won by country mile last year. And so, as we mentioned, it's a big miss, but he's not the only one that could have been, but wasn't in the final with your back. Without that, you probably would have been up there as well.
Certainly here to play, it's fun.
David Ford, as ever, it's been a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much for your experience, your knowledge, and your enthusiasm. Join us tomorrow, please. We're going to be covering the K1 women, the C2, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Mike Dawson and David Florence are going to be with me in the commentary box. I'm Matthew Leighton. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And goodbye. See you tomorrow.